well educated, a leader, building for father for as far as his images and the gates and the lions, building him a city for his name that was going to last forever. But as you go through the book of Exodus, you will find out that they was killing the children of the Israel, or the Hebrew people, because they was multiplying so much, they was overtaking the real Egyptians. And that Pharaoh at that time was he was getting a little bit worried. He was concerned. So he started to put these children to death. But still, that couldn't stop the midwives, because these women were having children and nobody there to know they was even expecting. But all through all of this, coming out of bondage, God take his people out. God remember them, taking them out into Mount Sinai, the Mount of God, out there in Arabia, the Arabian desert. Moses led God's people, a deliverer. God was going to take them out there to train them, give them his laws, his articles, gave them the oracles that was going to be handed down to us in these last days. Comes the Bible, all the religious regiments. You got the three different type of laws. You got the moral law, which is the 10 Commandments. You got the priesthood laws to govern how the priests supposed to operate the temple, how there was to be atoned for sin, and all the religious laws. And then you got the civil laws that govern the people of Israel. And all this was being set up, all these laws was being given to the children of Israel at Mount Sinai, the Arabian desert. God calling out his people, Israel. There's a scripture here in Deuteronomy. Well, we could go back in Genesis 19, verse 5, where God told you how we take his people out, put them on eagle's wings, take them into the deserts, where all these years, 40 years, and they never have to change their clothes. Their clothes was never torn or ripped apart. Same shoes or sandals never got worn out. God feed his people every day. Manna from heaven, quail, whatever. God feed them all through in the desert. Water from rocks. God taking care of his people. Build a tabernacle, showing them how to worship him. Build the Ark of the Covenant. They received the 10 Commandments. They received all the laws for the Jewish nation. Because if you was going to have a nation, you're going to have some laws that you got to live by, and that's come through the government. Now, at this point, God was the king. God was the leader for his people. He led them by fire by night and clouds by day, guarding, protecting his people. Fire in the front, fire in the rear, Fire and clouds by day and fire by night. And so they travel around into the desert, up to Mount Sinai. Take on about 7 different nations, wars against different nations. And so it was. Moses led the Israelite, the children of Israel, the Hebrew people. And in Deuteronomy chapter 7, God told you, these are my people. I love them. And I chosen them, not because there was a great amount in quantity. There was the least among all the nations. And that's why God chose them, because he called one man start the whole nation, promised them to give them a land, a promised land, where God is going to give them. And under that government and a nation, there was going to be a government. And that government was going to be a king that was going to reign over them. And that was the promise God made to Abraham. So from 2004 BC, from the calling of Abraham to the coming of the Messiah Christ, there was like 2,000 years for the coming of Christ, the Messiah. So it's from Abraham all the way through Christ. It was all about Jews only. Jews only. Anyone that was bought was like a slave. They have to become circumcised to even be in the house or being amongst the children of Israel. The children of Israel became a nation, God's nation, God's people. There's no way around that. People might talk about, oh, the Jews this and the Jews that. Mostly, Jews crucify their Christ, their King, their Messiah. They crucify them. And God, in fact, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I need to do it because so you could understand, because some of you might not listen till the end. But what happened was, from the calling of Abraham, God deal with his people, the Jews. He defended them. He fight for them. He fought for them. God take them all through all these different nations. Moses as their leader, all the way into the first 5 books, Exodus and Leviticus, the laws and all the rituals, Numbers, the numbering of their people and the different tribes. Each tribe was numbered. In Deuteronomy, the closing of the books of the laws and the end of Moses, coming into Joshua, is want to replace Moses. But all through the scriptures, keep in mind what is happening. Who is the scriptures being foretold to come? It was for the Jews, Jews only. Gentiles was lost, scattered, have nothing to do with the nation of Israel. Gentiles, non-Jews. Non-Jews is separated from the children of Israel in those days. The Canaanites fought against the children of Israel, coming to take the land for their possession. Because the land, I don't understand though, but God gave Abraham the land, made a covenant, an agreement that cannot be broken. And that curse from Noah and Ham descendants, the Canaanites, from Genesis chapter 10, that curse, not Ham, but his children, the Canaanites. And God destroyed them. But at first, when Joshua led his people over there, they started to be friends with these people. And that what came back to them to the end of their demise. Because these nations turn against them, lead them away to serving other gods. That was the main thing in the Old Testament with these Jews. They love to worship other gods. Idolatry, worship other things, put other things before serving God. There were stiff-necked people. There was hard-headed people. So God told them if they keep the Sabbaths and all the other holidays and all the things that was written in the law, God was going to make them a great nation. There was going to be a kingdom of priests. The whole nation was going to be a priesthood nation. The whole nation of Israel was going to bring the word to the Gentile. That was the part of God's plan for Gentiles. He was going to train his people if they only believe and trust in what God has told them. But they didn't have no faith. They was quick to ready to go back to Egypt, go back into bondage. They turned against God. They turned against Moses. They was on their own after a while because God leave them alone. And for 400 years, they was under judges. There was nothing from God. Once in a while, a certain judge, like Samson or Gideon or Jephthah, and a few others, Deborah, all these in the book of Judges, where God come along and destroy a nation because someone prayed to God and God answered their prayer, send them an angel or send them someone who go out and defeat the enemy. But then they turn away from God shortly after their victories. So that come on in the book of Judges. But all through the Bible, I could go story after story. Now, there was a few exceptions to Gentiles throughout the whole Testament. That God sent people to Gentiles. In Noah, well, we could say Jonah was sent to Nineveh to preach to Ninevites, the nation of Nineveh, about their transgression. And if there was turn around, God would save them and would not put his wrath upon them. And Jonah knew that there was a Gentile nation. Jonah did not want to go. He tried to jump off the ship where he went in the whale's belly, or the big fish. Noah went to preach to Nineveh, and they believe that even Jesus, he said, the nation of Nineveh, or the children of Nineveh, shall rise up in the judgment and shall condemn this nation because they believe in the preaching of Noah, or in the preaching of Jonah, and we hear of the preaching of Christ, and we still don't believe. That is the thing. But that's New Testament. So I'm mixing new and old because I'm trying to put them together for you. So you know, all through the whole Testament, it was Jews. God dealing with the nation of Israel, his people, the Israelites, the Jews. Because we must understand, coming out of Egypt, the nation going to the wilderness and Mount Sinai, they get the laws, and they started to move out. Moses and Mount Nemo, God keep him there. He didn't cross over the Jordan to go into Jericho. So Joshua took over and led the children of Israel into the promised land. As soon as they crossed the river Jordan, in fact, there's a part in the scriptures that told you that the river Jordan folded up and they crosses over with the Ark of the Covenant and dry land. The river rolled back, make a pathway, stone, that Joshua commanded them, each of the tribe, to pick up a stone for their tribe to represent the 12th tribe of Israel, crossing through dry land, crossing over the river Jordan and dry land, just like Moses did in the Exodus, crossing the Red Sea, going through the Red Sea. Same thing with Joshua leading his people into the promised land. They crossed the river Jordan and dry land, go over into next to Jericho, set up tent. Then they started circumcision once again, because all those years that they were living in, God have them in Mount Sinai,